Guys, thanks for jumping back with me on my channel. I'm a local property manager in Knoxville, Tennessee. This is kind of my studio setup, and what I want to do today is dive into the number one question every landlord should be asking a property manager. What type of property management business model do you have for my properties? So as we dive in, we're going to learn about the three different business models in property management and why an individual would choose one or the other, and why you as a landlord have pros and cons to each of these models. So before you jump into business with any property manager, you should know which one of the three are you working with and does that fit you. So let's jump into the video and learn a little bit about the three different types of property managers and why they chose the business model they went with. First up, we have the realtor manager. So that's the full-time realtor that has enough clients that they've been asked over the years to manage their properties. So typically landlords that have one or two will eventually use a realtor and say, hey, do you also do property management? And that realtor will actually start looking at the numbers and start realizing, man, this may be something I'm interested in. And so the realtor will rack up, a couple units at a time throughout their years in the industry. And the pros of this is actually the fact that they have less units they manage than any other type of property manager. You actually get more individual attention as a landlord with this type of property manager because they simply don't manage a lot of properties. A realtor property manager is somebody that will focus more on the representation of the buyer or the seller. So their daytime job is more focused on selling real estate and getting transactions done. That being said, you as a landlord may enjoy using one of these types of managers because they help you look into the future on what you should be buying. But on the back end, the organization is typically lacking, not always, but it is certainly something that you want to pay attention to because the incentive of that realtor property manager is simply to sell and represent buyers. And so the main source of income is just not around the management, which most people, they work hard where the money comes in. And since the money, 90% of their income is probably coming from the representation side of selling and buying real estate, they have a lower reason to keep detailed records, the bookkeeping, and the professional software up to par. And so you can run into situations where a realtor property manager will end up not hitting the mark for what your needs are as a landlord more often than not. So here are some of the benefits to why you may want to go with someone that is a realtor property manager. They're usually managing a small portfolio, around 30 properties or fewer. That means that they have time to give your property more attention and can be super responsive if you have a quick favor to ask for them to go to the property. Because oftentimes getting a property manager to be at the property is ironically tough. You may think that that's their main focus in their job, but the scaling of going to properties is one of the most difficult things property managers run into inside of their business model. Because the realtor property manager does not have as many clients, they can actually take a call from you more often. And when you need that quick favor to run over to the property to do this or that, or check on here or there, they can actually move their day around to get out there. And because they typically have a relationship where you have bought something or sold something through their real estate license, they more often than not don't want to hurt that relationship. And so they're more likely to go to that property that day, which is one of the bigger benefits of using a realtor property manager. But there's always downsides to every single property management business model. I would say one of the larger downsides of a realtor property manager is that they don't typically have the systems in place. Since real estate transactions make up 90% or more of their income, property management isn't their top priority. This can lead to delays in tenant screening, bookkeeping, or even maintenance follow-ups. They may not even have the systems or resources of larger companies, which can result in costly mistakes down the road. Property management software is a key thing that you need to be able to scale. And a realtor property manager may not have the desire to scale, so they might not have the level of detail that some of the software comes with because they simply don't have the software itself. But here's the thing, I'm not even trying to push that realtor property manager down and say that they're a terrible option. I actually think they can be a really good option for certain types of landlords. A lot of landlords that have a few rental properties across the nation in different states. So they might have a few in Knoxville where I'm located, then they have a few in California, some others in Texas. They may look into this type of property manager simply because they're more involved in their portfolio. So if you are a landlord that's actually trying to self-manage and just have a little bit of an assistance, you may go with one of these options because you know that this realtor over time will earn your business and make their money on the sale and the representation of the buying of real estate with you. And then you can negotiate a smaller management price monthly from the rent because you may not need all the services of a property manager. Boots on the ground is actually the number one thing that this person can provide. I will say that if you go with a realtor property manager, you need to be an experienced landlord, somebody that knows how to run a tight ship and somebody that understands the basic level of their bookkeeping, their maintenance, and their leasing, because you're going to need to use the realtor property manager as more of an assistant than a manager. That being said, if you are new to real estate or trying to scale in real estate, this type of property manager may not be the best option. In my opinion, one of the worst. To summarize it all up, if you're an experienced landlord that needs a way to cut costs and make the cash flow just a little bit better, and you want to be involved in your real estate full time, having a property manager realtor will be the best fit for you. So that way you can have them go over, take photos, help with turnovers, and do just the basic level of property management. However, the screening and the detailed bookkeeping and also the maintenance connections in the area, so that means contractors they know at competitive prices, may actually be lacking. So you will need to fill the gaps and bring that experience and roster of people that you know to the table in order to make this fit be a perfect marriage. So let's move on to the second type of property management business model. That's going to be the contractor focused property manager. So next up, we got the construction property manager. So that's somebody that has a ton of resources in the maintenance department because they actually run contracting crews as a different business model outside of the management. And they use the management firm as just a lead generation company for their construction. So that being said, they are usually larger property management companies because they are working with hopefully larger investors that are building and or flipping larger renovation projects. So they're trying to get the bids on the 20, 50, 100 unit apartment complexes around town. And then they simply offer the property management services as somewhat of a cherry on top of their business model because it allows them to stay in contact with those larger investors. The next bid on that renovation of the next big investment that landlord is making. More power to these people. I think that that's actually really smart. So I'm not speaking down on that business model. What I have found though is they're so incentivized to focus on the actual scaling of that landlord rather than looking behind that landlord and taking care of the projects that have been finished and perform the management and making sure it cash flows successfully so future projects can actually be obtainable with that investment return. So landlords, investors, however you want to title them, they need a good team behind them, with them, and pushing them into the future. And the way I see it is property managers are behind them. They're focusing on helping what they've completed, as in the landlord have completed 100, 200, 300 units. They're stabilizing and making the asset per. Where a construction team and renovation teams are in the now. They are turning things over, they're renovating, they're trying to get it ready for the future, and realtors are the best for future context. So these realtor property managers are typically more focused on what you should go do next than what you're doing right now or what you've done in the past. Landlords, investors, you need to have 3 different people on your team that are going to benefit you in different ways. The realtor to help you in the future, the contractor to help you in the now, and the property manager to be behind you helping yesterday. And so with those 3 different vendors, you will succeed. And when the other 2 are working on trying to be the manager, they don't have the incentive that they do in their main opportunity, which is pushing you to the future as a realtor or helping you in the now as a contractor. So when we talk on property management, let's focus on what you need out of that specific team member in your investment future. As a landlord, as an investor, you need to have different minds in each position on your team. So here's the good news on construction property managers. They're quick with repairs and have centralized systems for bookkeeping and tenant management. They're a good fit for landlords who value top tier maintenance and want their properties to look flawless. But there's kind of a catch. These companies often make little profit on the actual management. Instead, their business model revolves around upselling you on maintenance and just overall upgrades. So suddenly you're replacing a mailbox that was not really broken before, but now it looks amazing, and you're not really against it because this manager is focusing on the aesthetic and the front side of your property, making sure that the curb appeal is immaculate and is something that should be aligned with both of you. However, it typically long term turns into a situation where you start racking up the maintenance bills as the landlord and start realizing your property isn't cash flowing as well as it was previously with your property manager you have worked with before. That property manager that you worked with before may have been the realtor-focused property manager that was more focused on helping you sell and buy real estate than manage your current assets. So jumping into the construction property manager, you first off felt that they were more involved in your property than your previous manager, but the cash flow hasn't improved. Construction property managers are actually the number 1 property manager that I get my clients from. Most of my clients are leaving a construction property manager and jumping to us because they've realized that even though the maintenance has been taken care of at a high level, the cost of doing such has gone up dramatically, and they're paying too much for paint, touch-up, holes in walls, things that are inevitably going to happen and things that actually do need to get done, but they're paying too high in maintenance and labor costs. And on top of that, they've probably been sold on a landscaping package or any other type of package that involves improving the property. That's typically somewhat of a red flag to me. It's not that every property manager that offers a package of property improvement inside of, the maintenance department specifically is negative. I would just be wary on, is this property manager making more money on hanging flowers and making the curb appeal better, or are they actually making the money on the cash flow of the property? Because the construction focused, the maintenance focused property manager is more likely to continue to upsell you small little projects rather than actually focus on the core of property management, which is leasing, maintenance, bookkeeping. So just be paying attention to that, making sure that when you do sit down that you understand like what is their average cost for a basic job. So number 1 thing I would ask is, how much does it cost for a light bulb to get changed if I, as the landlord, decided to pay for it? That will give you a clear understanding of labor hours because the light bulb doesn't take any material costs. So that, light bulb is $2. So what am I paying? Certain people will bill you 75, certain people will bill you 300, and it all will give you clues on who has competitive handymen and who has a incentive to profit on you as their property manager inside of maintenance. The construction maintenance type property manager is just focused more on finding ways to sell you on upgrades than truly focus on the core principles of property management. Out of the 190 units that I manage right now, 76 of them came from a landlord that actually jumped ship from this type of property manager that was focused more on construction than the actual management of the asset. And what I learned was, because they focus on maintenance, they are really good at doing that one siloed responsibility in property management, but they lose out on the leasing side. So the vacancies dreadfully high, talking 3 to 6 months with vacant units inside of the Metro Knoxville area. When we took over, we focused on leasing out these properties because of how many vacancies there were. And just by doing showings in person and having our team be there to get the applications through, we filled all the units up within 4 to 6 weeks and moved on with that customer. And they were really, really happy. And I was happy about it because, truthfully, if you focus on property management and just the core values and responsibilities that we have, you can be really successful. And because that type of business model that they came from, which was the construction focused manager, their incentives weren't aligned with the landlord. So you can't blame them for why they look at their business model and it doesn't align with how you want your asset to cash flow. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about my favorite property manager. Ding, ding, ding. Number 1, the Purebred property manager. Guys, why don't we have more of these people? It's crazy. The amount of people that actually just do property management is lacking. And there's probably going to be people in the comments like, I do that, I do that, I do that. That's great, but if you sell or represent buyers or you have a construction crew, you are probably not a purebred property manager. That's just how it is. When you're in property management full time and you are focused on it, you can profit as a property manager by doing your job and making properties cash flow. So, not to get on a huge rant and get all emotional, but the thing is if you do the basic property management, you can go a long ways. I have grown from 0 to 190 units managed in under 3 years just by doing the basics of leasing things quickly, having accurate bookkeeping, and hiring handymen that can do jobs at competitive rates. Those 3 things make me grow, because of the word of mouth from people sharing videos like this and people tagging me on the local Facebook groups inside the investment pages allows me to grow. And the word of mouth ultimately is the only way that I'm going to scale to my 500 unit goal and spend practically nothing on marketing. And it's by having a great service. I think, not to get off subject, but Steve Jobs just focused on making a product, and having it fit the consumer. And it just interlinked eventually and made them a ton of money at Apple. So once again, the Purebred property manager, it's my favorite one to talk on because it's still a very difficult thing to find a good purebred property manager. But I will say, these are the ones that in the future, when we do a video on how to interview a property manager, that will be the questions that will be worth asking the purebred property manager. If you're in a room with a realtor manager or a construction manager that's focused on those other incentives, then more power to you. There are reasons to go with them, but I want to focus on purebred property management because most of you actually think that that's what this video was on, was just asking or just trying to understand what you should be asking a property manager. But I had to do this video before doing the video on what are the top 5, top 10 questions to ask a purebred property manager, because I think most people don't understand that this industry has a lot of different types of people and incentives on why they have a property management company in the first place. And a lot of them don't align with the landlord's best interest. They actually just work as a lead magnet for a larger business for that property manager. So when you focus on property management and you want to actually sell real estate, you may do things that basically don't allow the property to succeed at its fullest, because landlords that succeed don't usually sell real estate. Now, you may say, well, hey, Dan, like realtors that succeed with property management may get you to be able to buy as an investor more properties because you're succeeding and you're having more success on the back end. And that may be true. And that's actually why I can't sit here and say that, these other types of property managers are absolutely terrible and you should never go with them. And that's why we went over previously in this video why and who may actually fit well with those types of property managers in the first place. But for the most part, if you create a property management contract between you as the landlord and them as the property manager, it should align with where they make their money when you make yours. And so property management is all about asset stabilization and cash flow. Finally, we have the purebred property manager. So this is their full-time job. Managing properties is what they live and breathe. They exist at both small and large scales, and their entire income depends on how well your property runs. And their entire income depends on how well your property cash flows. Most purebred property managers and other property managers charge a management fee based on rent collected. So the only difference is that the rent collected fee that the purebred property manager collects, they actually have the ability to profit on that. One of the best things about purebred property managers is that the scalability of going with one of them. You can go and have one property, or you can go and buy 100, and this one purebred property manager can handle the details of the small and also scale that out to your 100 units you've purchased. So in the purebred world of property management, when you look up property managers on Google or however you're finding the property manager in your local market, when you are working with them, they're incredibly good at scaling with you, and that is their number one incentive, because purebred property managers, they need a significant amount of units to be successful because they make money on just the property management itself. Now, when we speak on property management fees, a lot of times the construction-focused manager or realtor manager will take on smaller fees simply because their incentive is not in the management itself. It's on the outside activity that your relationship is based on. Oftentimes, the non-purebred, so the realtor acting as a property manager or the construction team focused property manager, the realtor focused property manager and the construction focused property manager will take on inexpensive or low-balled management contracts because they're really interested in continually upcharging you in the maintenance area and or trying to list or represent you in buying other real estate in the future, and they simply just want the relationship to continue. However, you get burned as the landlord because they cannot provide the service that you perceive that they owe you, because the overhead of that management is not lower than what you're paying, which means they're losing money. And they will recuperate it inside of maintenance or just trying to represent you more on the sale or buy of properties. Overall, the purebred property manager is 80 to 90% of the time the best option for a landlord. As I stated before, the realtor focused property manager is great for a experienced landlord that does not plan to scale, somebody that has a few investment properties in a location that they cannot do boots on the ground themselves, and they just need an extra assistant, which is that realtor property manager. I will give the construction focused manager, they do gel really well with landlords that are constantly needing renovations and have projects coming up that have tight deadlines, because that property management company has the crews to get the job done and get it done quick. Where, for example, my property management company does not touch anything over $2,000 or $3,000 worth of maintenance, simply because we are a property manager and we are not a construction management company. So the construction focused property manager can be a really successful duo with the landlord when that landlord is obsessive about keeping their property maintained and is willing to pay the price. And that's somebody that may not even have a mortgage on that property, meaning that they don't really have a gorilla chasing them every month for overhead. They have little to no expenses, taxes, insurance, and just a boatload of cash always sitting there for the next maintenance project. And you would be amazed by the multimillionaires that still use and play in real estate with their emotions. And I will say the construction focused property manager may be the best solution for that person, because they are always at the property and they are always coming up with new ideas on how to improve it. There you have it, folks. You've learned about the 3 different types of property management business models. We've gone over the realtor friendly property manager, the construction focused property manager, and the absolute purebred property manager. We will next time jump into how to interview the purebred property manager, because even they make mistakes and even they have business models that may go against what you're looking for in a property manager that can successfully make sure your asset cash flows monthly and eventually turns into an amazing retirement opportunity for you and your family. There you have it, folks. We covered the 3 different property managers. I'll be digging deeper into the questions to ask property managers in future videos, how to avoid pitfalls, and future tips on how to maximize your rental income in upcoming videos. Thanks. Subscribe below. It helps my channel out quite a bit, and definitely press the bell thingy to make sure it rings and you get notified when I put out new videos. I'm trying to put videos out every Wednesday, if not just weekly at some point. And so my goal is to have 52 videos by the end of 2025, long format, and tons of shorts. So thanks so much. See you soon. The first is coming and rent is due.